In this episode of the Business of E-commerce, I talk with Liu Williams about the journey from being a techie to an e-commerce food entrepreneur. This is the Business of E-commerce, episode 43. Welcome to the Business of E-commerce, the show that helps e-commerce retailers start, launch, and grow the e-commerce business. I'm your host, Charles Pileski, and I'm here today with Liu Williams. Erica is the founder of granola, an e-commerce retailer that supplies tech companies like Google, Dropbox, and Twitter with healthy granola. I thought she had a very interesting background in B2B sales, so I wanted to talk more about how she started and is now growing her business. So hey, Erica, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show. It's great talking with you, and I read through your bio. It's super interesting. So I'll probably let you actually describe a little bit about your background and how you got started with granola.
Sure. Yeah, would love to share. So a little bit about me. I graduated Stanford in 2008. I was a former Stanford swimmer. I qualified for 2 Olympic trials. So I think the active living and fitness has always been a big part of my DNA. But healthy eating and food was something that I was very passionate about, but I didn't really quite learn how to do it until my husband and I started adopting a post Super Bowl month-long cleanse. Okay, so just like for a career background at the time, and after I graduated college in 2008, I started a career in tech in Silicon Valley. So I'm in the Bay Area of California where that tech boom happened. And so I was working a full-time tech job, had this itch to start something entrepreneurial, didn't really know what I wanted to do or solve. But I was making this homemade granola, and that was just purely out of a need as far as wanting to find a healthy yet delicious snack during this cleanse that my husband and I would do. And we really found ourselves with not, a lot of great options. And so one day I literally was watching Food Network, and Alton Brown, celebrity chef, was making granola. But as you know, a lot of granolas on the market are really unhealthy. So they're full of sugar, they're full of genetically modified oils. So I just decided to make sort of a clean version of it using better ingredients like organic coconut oil and superfoods. And this ended up being a staple in our household, not just during this cleanse, but all year round. And so one day, maybe 6 months later, after I started getting that entrepreneurial itch, I decided, what if this could be my idea? I leaned into it, decided to just launch at a local farmer's market back in 2013. And that's how I basically got started. So in the beginning, it was purely just selling at the farmer's market, me baking my granola after I came home from work, packaging it on the weekends and selling on Saturdays. However, I got my first big break shortly after I launched the business when one of my friends who worked at Google offered to connect me to their food team. And so I don't know if you guys know, but Google pioneered, this requirement now where, these Bay Area Silicon Valley tech companies basically have to offer like the best food and beverages and amazing benefits to just retain and attract talent. And I got the opportunity to sample my granola at Google, and I ended up getting voted into all of their micro kitchens. So I literally went from having to, home bake 20 pounds a week for the weekly farmers market to suddenly Google placed, an order for 1,500 pounds of granola that they wanted every single month. So I had to figure out how to scale my production pretty quickly. But that was definitely a big opportunity for me, not just winning Google's business, but creating a different channel of going to market with my product rather than going into just traditional grocery stores that most food brands do. I've been able to build out this channel of supplying all the biggest, tech companies in the Bay and in the Pacific Northwest, supplying my granola to all the employees there.
So let's see. So you said you started around 2013?
Yes.
Somewhere around there? Okay. So what were you doing in tech before that?
Yeah, so so my first role in college, I was an intern, and I was a product intern. So this was back when Yahoo was trying to compete with MySpace and Facebook, and I was on the Yahoo profiles team. So I dabbled a little bit in product management, maybe like a year and a half. I felt like, well, I'm not technical, like marketing seems like something that might be interesting. And then I ended up working for another company for 4 years doing marketing. That company ended up getting acquired by Intuit, the makers of QuickBooks and TurboTax. And that was the stage, that was the phase when I started to kind of like incubate my itch to do something. And it was at the company when I was at Intuit. That's when I decided to start do my own side project of creating a business out of my granola. And then I actually hung on to my full-time job for the first 4 years of Great Granola's, I guess, lifespan. And I did one other job where I just wore many hats. It was a Series A startup. I did everything from marketing to managing a sales team to operations. And I moonlit Great Granola on the side the entire time. And it got to a point where, slowly you're starting to just feel like every single part of me wanted to do the business only. And that's when I decided to finally take the leap. But it took about 4 years for me to finally get to the point where I felt comfortable and confident enough to do my business full time. And I am now coming up on 1 year of full-time entrepreneurship.
Congratulations for that, actually. So then so you've been doing this for 5 years, but for the first 4, you were working
a
side business. So
it was figuring it out and it was literally just like overcoming fear, for the first, in the beginning, you're just trying to figure it out and it's really cute and it's like on the side and it's like, well, okay, cool. She's doing farmer's market and like, cool, but she's got Google, which is awesome. But it really wasn't until I would say like the last year and a half until I finally took the lead that I was really starting to build momentum and see how certain activities I was doing, whether it was business development, whether it was building up my social media presence, yielded outputs in sales and revenue. And then I started to realize, look, like my limitation right now is bandwidth and giving it my full mind share. What could I do if I suddenly dedicated all of my efforts into the business instead of having to commute 3 hours into San Francisco for work, and do a job that honestly didn't drive me. No, that's not speaking anything negatively to those companies that I work for. They've been awesome. It was more so just the passion and the drive that was just so hard, like so strong within me for the business.
Well, there's something to be said too for starting off with that full-time job because it gives you this like opportunity to try things that you otherwise wouldn't do, right? Where if you had to, make money and pay rent and, eat on day one, you have to do certain things that you have to make money. There's no choices. But when you don't have that like looming over you, you can say, let's take all the profits, you're selling to Google, let's take everything, just reinvest it and try some weird marketing campaign. Oh, it failed.
Yeah.
Let's try again next month. Let's just try something else and we'll just keep doing that. And it gives you opportunities to find things that work, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think two things, obviously. The first is, you get the cushion of, salary and benefits. So even if you lose, of course I went into the business knowing that, hey, I might lose a couple $1,000s. I really tried to approach it very leanly. Like I was never like, okay, cool. Like, let me take my whole salary and invest in starting up this business. I approached it with the mindset of, hey, okay, if I'm going to launch at the farmer's market, like my first step is just purely to validate the product. Like I want to know that other people are going to like want, crave, and repeatedly buy my product. And it's not just, okay, great, this is good, but I would never buy it. So I wanted to test that as quickly as possible. And I figured the farmer's market was the easiest way to access that immediate feedback. And I went in like prepared to lose maybe up to $1,000, $2,000 just based off like buying your LLC, setting up a basic website, booth stuff, filing for my trademark. And then the Google thing kind of happened by accident. I didn't ever look at supplying, the B2B channel or this tech market as a way, like as my strategic go-to-market. It just happened from me putting, the fact that I launched my business out there on Facebook into my network. And then my friend who worked at Google just happened to see it and she reached out. But I think having the job, that just gives you the runway to try these things and you're not so pressed to having to figure things out so quickly, and you have time to kind of test some things. And for me, I think it really helped me stay patient because even though I got Google pretty fast, it took me a while to actually get momentum in that channel.
How long did that take to get Google?
Okay, so I launched the business, meaning I sold at my first farmer's market in June of 2013. And at the time, I was literally baking out of my home kitchen. I was a cottage food operator. I got the opportunity to basically share my product with Googlers at a fair that they had. So they used to do these snack fairs. A lot of these big tech companies do it, where they invite vendors to sample their products, and the employees come, they taste, and they vote for what they actually want. So I got invited to do the Google Fair in September. So within 3 months, I had to produce enough product, by hand. It was literally me and my mom at the time. And we went to the fair, and that was 3 months in. And then after the fair, I think in 2 months, I found out that I actually got voted in. So I won the granola category, and they placed their first PO for 1,500 pounds in November. And they wanted me to obviously start supplying in January, but I couldn't, it took me until March to actually figure out how to produce that much, and how I was going to price and package and palletize things. Literally I went from, hand packaging, hand labeling stickers on a clear bag, for something that you might see in a Whole Foods or a really small specialty grocery store, to Google's we want 1,500 pounds. Oh, what material are the bags? What's your pallet specs? I had no clue, let alone know how to produce that much with a full-time job.
Well, because then you need to spend the next, however many, 6 months trying to figure out, it's not even, those next 6 months aren't, how do I get more sales? It's how do I even just fulfill this one sale? How do I...
Scale. Oh yeah. It was just, how do you scale from homemade granola for the weekend market for consumers to this big whale corporate account? It took me a lot of networking. Obviously I didn't hand bake the 1,500 pounds.
Did you go to a copacker, or how did you actually...
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
I went to a copacker. And before this business, I have no background in food. I didn't even know what a copacker was.
So actually, for people listening, what is a copacker?
So copacker is basically a company that manufactures, they might manufacture their own products, but they manufacture other products for a client. And many of them might have their own food lines, or maybe they have a business like a catering business. And this is a way to obviously maximize their overhead and operational costs, since they already have the staff, the equipment, and the facility to kind of produce for others. But they basically manufacture for another brand.
So you got the order, and then did you know right away, oh, I need to find a copacker? Or was that even something, did you not know what that was? Or how did that happen, that whole process?
I think I feel like I knew right away I wasn't going to be able to fulfill it on my own.
The kitchen wasn't big enough. You knew that.
Immediately.
Yep.
Even if even, of course I knew I wasn't going to do it, but even I just knew there's no way I was going to have operational efficiency to even hire people to do it while renting a commercial kitchen. It's just not my trade or my background.
Yep.
And so, this is not a problem that you could just solve with Google. And so my immediate instinct is to just start asking as many people in the space that I know, and get connected to another person through the next person through the next person. So as soon as I knew, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this on my own. And I also know I'm not ready to quit my job, but probably by the first or second conversation, I knew that I needed a copacker. And then it was about finding one. It wasn't even about finding the right one, because it's not like there's 10 copackers out there that are perfect and I just need to pick the best one. It was literally who will even take me on? 1,500 pounds might sound like a lot, but that's really small. And it's a huge risk for another company to onboard me, knowing that I'm just starting my business. They don't know if I'm going to grow. This could be a fluke. And they also have the capacity and the equipment to do my product, which is very specific, right? So
yeah, not every copacker can do every product, right? Some specialize in frozen foods, others completely different things. So, the folks at Copac ice cream can't do granola. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah, so that was a challenge, but I think it's the main thing is, go out there, test your product, get the demand first. When you get that big order, you will figure it out when the opportunity is there. I hear a lot of people, they think about, hey, I need to find a copacker before I can even go to market, right? But it's no, trust me, when you get that order for 1,000 bars or whatever you're making, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out a way to produce it, but first go generate that demand.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Step 2 before step 1.
That's one of those things that's very, coming from tech, very lean startup-ish, where you go and you start getting the demand, you test the product and find out, does anyone even want this? Is this actually good? Is this something the world wants? And then you figure out okay, they want it. How do I actually get this to them? Not the other way around.
Yeah, you fake it until you make it, and make it, you will get it done.
Speaking of, did Google know at the time that you were in your kitchen, or was this?
Yeah, I think they love that. So
Okay.
Google, Google and, all these tech companies in the Bay, or just tech companies in general, as they're thinking about what employees want, what consumers want these days, they want local, they want healthy, they love, artisanal products. They're not trying to go bring Coca-Cola into their, MK or MK's micro kitchens. And so when I sent Google their first sample of my product, it literally had my label, which said cottage food operator made in a home kitchen. Like, that's literally how I was producing it and selling it for the farmer's market. So I think they really loved it.
And that's what probably helped, one of those things too, of, this isn't General Mills and it's on the shelf with like a, Captain Crunch on the side. This is like something you can tell, oh, someone built this in the kitchen.
Yep. So people, that's what consumers want these days, right? Which is, they're brands with a story, they're authentic, they're, conscious brands that care about what goes inside.
So then how did you go so now March, you finally got that first order out to Google. You said, great, okay, that's on the back of the truck going. How did you go from there to saying, let's keep this going, let's keep this ball going, let's not have this be the one account?
Yeah. So looking back, I honestly hit a couple dead ends in the beginning. So when I got Google, it was like a huge break. It was my first breakthrough, but by no means did I have an actual working business model, because can you go and replicate and get another Google and another Google and another Google? The first year and a half, it was really hard. So, of course I had this huge win and I can go to other distributors and other companies and say, hey, I've got Google. But a lot of people in the beginning said no to me because, again, I'm still an unknown brand. I don't have distribution. They're probably quite happy with what they already had. Well, and some
of them only buy through their own established channels, right?
They're going to only buy through other distributors. So Google was big enough of an account where, they would order and I would supply them directly. But all these other companies like Twitter, Dropbox, Slack, all of them use distributors or basically like snack vendors who will stock their kitchens. And so even if they love the product and they're like, yeah, we want granola, if they can't get it from their one supplier, they're not going to like order one off and be like, okay, cool, we'll just manage your orders and POs and invoices separate from like the one account we streamline everything else through. Yeah. So in the beginning, it was really hard to get distribution, number one, and then also be able to get those other accounts. And so,
did you think you were going to sell directly into the companies, or did you know initially like, oh, there's a distributor network and I like have to play that game?
I think I had to learn that. I didn't know. So again, I never had a plan. I just knew I had a great product and I wanted to bring it to market. And before I got Google, I just envisioned myself as like, okay, I could see myself on the shelves of Whole Foods, right? But then the Google thing happened by accident. I was able to win that account. And then afterwards, of course, it's like, well, it makes sense if I already have this formatted and it works for companies, who else can I go after within that like corporate wholesale channel? And so I quickly learned that you do have to go through a distributor network. Most of the bigger companies are not going to bring me in no matter how much they love me unless I am supplied through the distributors that they purchase all of their, food and beverages from. And so I had to really go through the back door. So I leveraged a lot of my, tech network, having worked in the industry, for 10 years, looking back, 5 years when I started the business. And I got connected to, office managers or facility managers, the people who decide which products they want. And so my strategy was really to like, if they love the product enough, they will go ask their distributor and say, hey, we want to bring granola in. Oh, you guys don't have it? Well, we want it, right? So as soon as you can get an anchor account. So for example, the way I got Dropbox, I, had a connection to Dropbox. He loved my product so much that he went to the people that stocked, Dropbox with all their food and beverages and was like, hey, we want to bring in granola. So then that distributor was basically forced to bring me in. But then what's amazing is that once you get anchored into a distributor, then you can open up all the accounts that they also supply.
Okay. Did you try going to the distributors first, the other way around? And they said...
Exactly. So yeah, in the beginning, I had to go to the distributors first. And they're like, distributors, they're not salespeople, right? They're literally just someone, you go through them, right? So distributors, they're going to be like, well, you need to bring some business. You need an anchor account. We're not going to just go sell you into these companies, right? And so I really had to kind of go through the back door and get, these companies to basically raise their hand and say, hey, distributor, we want this product, so we're kind of forcing you to bring it in.
Yeah, and that's the thing with distributors. It's not their job to create the demand. It's your job to create demand, and they
Mhm.
fulfill it.
Oh,
So it's this weird thing where you're kind of handing off the fulfillment piece to them, but it's still your job to create the demand. But it's not going to be direct to you anymore. It's going to be you create the demand for them to buy to someone else.
correct.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a very odd relationship.
It's tough. It's a really hard nut to crack. But I gotta say, like, product is the most important thing. So again, I always went on taste. Like, Dropbox didn't bring me in just to support me because I'm like this local female entrepreneur, trying to do something. They really love the product, right? But I think it's equally important to nurture those relationships. So even though Dropbox, got me to get their distributor to bring me in, I then made it a priority to build that relationship with that distributor because I need them to, understand who I am, my story, what I'm trying to do, my vision and my passion. And then hopefully they will go and they'll think of me when they're, stocking someone else's accounts with granola.
So then at that point, Dropbox goes to the distributor and says, "We want this." Then you get connected with the distributor because they're basically forced to at that point. And then once you're in, now you're saying, "Hey, why don't you try this? What else can we do
Yeah.
together?"
Send you samples. I don't know if you're allowed to share a customer list with me, but I have a lot of connections in tech and I'm happy to go work and like be feet in the street for you and like help send samples and get people on board. Because of course, like distributors, they make money off of brands like me, right? Like if higher quality, slightly more expensive granola. I mean, against like the Kinds and the General Mills, of course, but at the same time, distributors take kind of like a percentage markup. So if I'm a higher value, product, they're hopefully going to make more money off of me than the General Mills anyway, right? So I try to position it as a win-win. But again, you really got to get them behind you and the brand.
Now, how does that work with distributors with food? Are they purchasing ahead of time for each week? Because obviously it's not something they can just, buy 6 months worth and throw it on a shelf. So like, how do they
Yeah.
actually purchase from you?
Yeah. Oh God, inventory management. It just goes over my head. But usually they'll place like monthly POs. In the beginning, they have to do a little bit of forecasting. They're not going to know, for example, they might bring me in a Dropbox. They're probably going to order a little bit more in the beginning to understand the consumption pattern. But I would say usually they order every month or so after they figure out what the usage is. The nice thing about granola, it has great shelf life. So it's not like something they have to move urgently, but of course, with any warehousing and inventory management, they want to be efficient with their space. So they're ordering about every month.
Okay, so they can put month POs in, and it takes them probably, I'm guessing, a couple months, and they start understanding the sell through. And okay,
Yep.
so then how did you get kind of the next few business accounts? So then you got a distributor, you went to the network of other companies they're selling into, and you started just saying, "Hey, all you have to do is talk to your distributor. They can get this, next week for you."
Yep. So once you kind of get those key distributors, it gets easier and easier. But I would say the biggest challenge was just getting that distributor, like the distributor in the first place. But again, once you get them, then you have access to all these other accounts that now you can go to. And those office managers don't have, it's simple. All they have to do is,
Like check a box, basically check a box that week, and it just magically shows up.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's probably, I'm guessing, only a handful of distributors in that market.
Yeah, so in the Bay Area, I would say there's maybe like five major players. And actually now all of those distributors are streamlined through a really big distributor. So between me and let's just say Dropbox, right? There's actually two layers. So I supply one distributor, that distributor supplies the other distributor, that distributor supplies the company. But I literally work my way backwards.
Okay. So you have a distributor supplying the distributors that then sells to the companies.
Correct. And then it
Okay.
gets in the mouths of the people who are, obviously the employees. And just an important thing to note there is be mindful of this if you're thinking about a business like this, because you need to make sure you don't undermine your pricing. Because in the beginning, when you build the business, you may have a couple direct accounts in the beginning, the people who are willing to take you on and manage you directly. Usually they're the smaller companies. But know that one day you hope you can streamline everything through a distributor. So make sure you have that distributor markup in your pricing.
Yeah. How do you, so when you say the distributor markup, how do you figure that out initially? So you know here's your cost, here's a retail cost. How do you get those in, like, where do you go in between and find those price breaks?
Well, I feel like I didn't have this foresight, and fortunately, I just didn't. I didn't screw myself with my pricing initially, but I think so for me so as a food manufacturer, you always want to strive for like 40%, gross margin. In the B2B wholesale channel, you can go a little bit lower because you're not spending a ton of money doing marketing. When you're going to grocery stores, you need to really strive for more like 50% because you're the one who has to pass promos and discounts and charge, like free cases or whatnot for grocery stores. But good thing, wholesale, you kind of just sell them the product and the margin is yours. So ideally, you should strive for a 40% margin. You want to put that in there first. And then the first distributor layer that I supply, they will then maybe mark their product up 10%. It's not too high, but maybe 10% to the other distributors. And those other distributors, it's always the distributor between like the end consumer that does the big markup. They might do like 30%, right? So you kind of want to work backwards from there, but then you have to price yourself competitively too. So hopefully all of that works going in and coming back down with the market.
It seems like there's like a science to this. It's a little tough
It's very tricky. Yeah. It's really hard when you're starting up too, because your cost of goods are not going to be super low. So you want to price yourself where you have enough runway, but at the same time, you can't price yourself completely out of the market.
Well, and I'm assuming initially with the copacker, when you're placing that first order, your cost of goods are relatively high. So then you're putting a higher than it should be. The price you're giving to the distributors is higher than it really should be. But then as you're able to get into the distributors, you can give them a better price. But
you have to get more volume.
You have to get more volume. Yeah. So this is kind of chicken and egg thing that.
That's definitely a challenge.
Yeah. Any tricks to figuring that out, or just kind of?
Biggest advice would be, don't price yourself assuming that your margin is going to get lower. You're going to screw yourself, right? So, you might not have 40% right away, but like at least strive for 20, 25, right? And you might have to do it just to get the business and make it work, but don't price yourself thinking that your margin is going to come for sure, because if you don't have a margin, you're not going to have you're not going to have the capital to grow, and you're going to find yourself cash strapped, which you will already in this kind of business since you have to front money towards inventory. So don't be afraid to overprice yourself a little bit, knowing that, your quality is there. And even if you are able to achieve the margin, like let's just say tomorrow my cost of goods just dropped a ton, I'm not going to go slash my pricing. I'm going to keep it where it is since people are already buying and it's okay. But just don't, I think a lot of businesses will just price themselves assuming, okay, well, I'm going to get here. And then that ends up like putting them out of business.
Yeah. So don't go in there saying, my cost of goods is X today, but, we're going to triple our volume and it'll be half that. So let's set our margins at half that now and race there as quick as we can. Assume they're going to stay up there for longer than you would expect.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, and I think it's one of those things where if it's just way too expensive in the beginning and you're just your price double than your competitors and no one's buying, you have to look at your business model. You got to see if this is really a viable business then.
Got it. So then as far as actually purchasing inventory, how does that work with this model? Because you have to pay the copackers. I'm assuming at the beginning you don't have very good terms, right? So you're paying them pretty much upfront, and then you have to wait for the actual payment to come back from a distributor, which is going to take a while.
Yeah. Okay. So with copackers, the great thing is that, I just pay for basically ship ready product, right? So I'm not dealing with sourcing raw ingredients. I'm not dealing with inventory management. I'm not dealing with, if they overbake a batch and it's not to spec, I don't have to worry about that. At the same time, that they have their margin in it. So like there's automatically probably like 10% margin that I have to absorb. But I think with the co-packer, it's just, I think you want to make sure that you start off on the right foot and you have a co-packer who's not going to, rob you, right? Because it's in their best interest for you to grow with them, right? They don't, if you're a small business, hopefully you're working with someone who wants to see you grow, because that would be a win-win. And fortunately, the copacker that I'm working with now has, while copackers are usually not super transparent about, okay, this is exactly how much I'm getting every single ingredient, therefore I'm adding 10% and this is what it is. Like, usually they kind of keep that to themselves. Like, my copacker now has been really awesome, where she's like, look, we just usually have X margin. If we have some things that change in the market that make things super efficient, we will pass those savings on to you and just keep our kind of like flatline margin, because we want to see you grow, right? At the same time, if, ingredients double or labor doubles, we're going to also have to, go up as well. So that's a little bit scary, because, like, things could change and it's really beyond your control. And your copacker could literally just say, hey, in 30 days, we got to raise pricing 10%. And in a food business, when you're only making 30 to 40% when you start, that's a lot. But it does save a lot of headaches, because I can't even imagine how inefficient it would be for me to do this all myself. I wouldn't be able to have any bandwidth to focus on sales and marketing. I'd be just focused on production.
Yeah. And that's one of those things too. And foods is very different than a lot of hard goods, right? Where you literally don't know the price week to week. I've talked to people with like restaurants where, they're like, oh, the cost of bread has gone up, 6% this week. And you don't think about these things of realizing, oh, bread goes up 6% in a week. And if you're buying, $10 worth, you don't care. But if you're buying, thousands of dollars a day or a week, then it starts to move the needle.
Right.
So then are you at this point still using at that point, were you using your full-time job to basically fund the paying for the product from the copacker, sending it to the distributor, and then waiting? I'm assuming then the distributor is paying you when you actually get it there, or when they sell it?
Yeah. So when I started, and again, my first customer outside of the farmer's market was Google. They were my only customer for like the first year of business. Now, I want to say I look back and I feel very lucky, because again, my copacker that I was working with at the time, I would just send them orders when I got the order. So that was a luxury, right? Where it's not like I'm preparing all this inventory with the hopes that I'm getting a purchase order. Fortunately, Google was willing to work with me and give me like a whole month lead time for fulfilling an order, just not normal. Most of the time people will want their product within 2 weeks, let's say, reasonably. But I would wait until I had an order, and then only when I had a purchase order from Google would I then send a purchase order to my copacker.
Okay. Because a lot of times too, the copacker wants a minimum guarantee that.
Yeah. So, I feel very fortunate where that first copacker was, the 1,500-pound orders were enough to justify them to like start and stop. But again, they're going to be most efficient when they can just run. But that's how it was for the first year and a half. I had a good lead time, or I had a really big buffer on my lead time from Google. They were willing to work with me on that. And then I would only place orders when I had an order. And then Google was also really awesome, because for small businesses like mine, they do net 15 payment terms, which is like unreal.
Wow. Yeah,
right?
That is.
Yeah, I hear in grocery, right? It could be like net 60.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Plus you're fronting all this marketing, capital to them too. So I was lucky there. And then I was able to kind of, again, over the first year and a half, 2 years, got through my lull, started getting more and more accounts, and I got more volume. And then I could see, okay, look, as a business, I have steady consumption, where now the copacker I work with, she's able to kind of say, hey, we'll always have like X amount of pallets on standby, and I can deploy them within a week or two whenever a customer orders. So I kind of have that volume going now.
And that probably helps with, they can plan, you can plan. And then were you able to fund it all just out of your full-time business, or did you have to go out and actually?
Question, yes. Yeah. So in the beginning, I want to say I wasn't that, I'm so bad. I'm not that focused on like the finances. Like, I just literally was like, let me just grow this business and make sure that I have a great product and I can somewhat scale it. But I probably invested maybe like 20 or 30,000 in the first like year or two. But then eventually I was able to break even, because again, all the profit that I make from this channel supplying tech companies goes into my pocket. I'm not obligated to use that towards marketing to get more tech accounts. The tech accounts are purely just through like business development, me reaching out, sampling, and getting the sale. I don't have to once it's in a company, it moves. It's free for the employees. So I was able to break even from that, and now I've been just bootstrapping it ever since.
So
But
those.
I'm gonna have to.
Oh,
I think I'm gonna have to. No, just down the road. Like ultimately, I'm not trying to build a business that's purely this, bulk granola and these companies. Like these tech employees, the market, it's definitely my demographic, which is awesome. But unfortunately, they're not seeing my bright purple packaging. It's usually in a bulk dispenser. Maybe I'm lucky if my logo is on it, right? Like my brand name is on it. It says granola with the 8. But I'm lucky if they even have my logo or like my website. So it's not building the brand. And ultimately, I'm trying to build a brand. And so that's why I'm really trying to focus a lot on, my social online presence and grow my direct to consumer channel through Amazon and my website, because that is my strategy for building the brand. And I look at the B2B channel as more, this is great volume. This is a great way to seed the market. But how do I ultimately get people to just fall in love and, join my community online and really, become lovers of granola, the brand?
okay. So then it sounds like at some place in the past couple of years, you've switched from solely B2B to more a blend, right? B2B and direct to consumer.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say right now my revenue is probably 80-20 B2B to online. And again, I have no grocery store presence, and I'm deliberately trying to not do that as long as I can grow the brand online. So I would say revenue is about 80-20 B2B to online, but effort, resources, and money is probably the inverse, with the hypothesis and the hopes that this online channel is really going to build the brand, and that's truly scalable channel. Food service, B2B channel, that is a great kind of foundation, and it's my bread and butter today. But again, it's not like I can scale that part of my business to be like the $20 million business that will make me an investable and super attractive business to, other companies, right? But the B2B or the direct to consumer side can. And, traditionally food brands have gone to retail first to do that, but you're seeing more and more the market, especially with Gen Z and millennials, they're buying everything online. And so obviously it's a much better, I'd say you get a better margin, you get paid quicker than going the traditional grocery route. So that's why I'm focused so much on my online strategy.
So now, have you been able to leverage your B2B to, well, first, it's nice that you have that income coming in every month. So you're able to now say, full time, I can focus on this. And even if I want to spend, you spend 80% of your time on the B2C, you at least have the 80% revenue funding it, right? So it gives you that little, like a lab. Basically, you basically raised your own funding through that sweat equity.
Yep.
Okay. So then from there, have you been able to use the B2B to grow the B2C, or is that almost its own thing that's happening now?
So when I look at my B2C channel, so my Amazon customers, and obviously the data in Amazon on your customers is not that easy to navigate. But then my Shopify data, because I'm bootstrapped and I'm not doing a ton of things in marketing, but because I'm not on store shelves, it's pretty easy to say, hey, if I see an order going to the Bay Area, Palo Alto, San Jose, San Francisco, I can almost assume that that's coming from my B2B channel, right? If I'm seeing orders going all over the country to Florida, Texas, that's likely coming from my Instagram efforts. So they feed into both, right? I think there's a lot of customers, or there's a lot of employees in these tech companies that are buying my product. They love my product enough. They figure out the name and they go online and they find me and they buy and they pay for shipping, even though they get my product for free in their offices. I saw that from the very beginning of when I started this business. I have diehards that will literally go find me, pay for shipping, because I pass my shipping price to my customers online right now. And they'll buy me. But then I'm also doing a lot of influencer marketing on social media. I've dabbled a little bit in PR. And so when I do see those orders, come in and go across the country, it's usually from the online efforts. I don't know that mix yet. I got to get deeper into the data, but the B2B definitely feeds the online side.
Okay. So you're not sure exactly how much yet, but it's definitely it's helping. And you can probably see, I'm assuming a disproportionately high amount of your consumer sales go to that Bay Area.
It's hard to say. I mean, a lot of it is through Instagram. And again, influencers have been a really big part of my strategy because, once you start building up like this cohort of people who have a similar following, everyone wants to do what whoever they look up to do and put in their body. But I see them go all over the place. Yeah, I mean, I need to look into this and see if I can just like filter based off zip code and state and just see like what the density looks like in the different regions. But the other thing too is anytime I hear from a customer, I have an abandoned cart email, right, for my website. Every customer I can like talk to, I always ask, hey, how'd you find out about granola? So whether someone DMs me on Instagram, DMs the brand, or if they reply back to my abandoned cart, I always ask where they heard of me. And usually, actually, I would say most of them heard about me on Instagram.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting, the influencer thing. Because right there, Instagram, granola is not a very visual product, but with the influencers, they can kind of...
Oh, yeah. You surprised. Yeah, you got to check out my Instagram and look at all the tag posts of me. You will see some amazing creations that they make.
Okay. We'll definitely link down in the show notes. So we're getting close on time. I feel like I could ask you more questions all day. This is this whole story is very interesting, going that whole the journey. So definitely want to keep an eye on the time though. So if people want to kind of learn more about you, kind of see what you're working on at Instagram, where else can they find you?
Yeah, so I mean, I think Instagram is, you'll get your little daily dose of greatness. It'll be very visually sexy stuff that you'll see in the form of granola. But if you want to go on the site and subscribe to my newsletter, a lot of updates are going out there, usually every week. And then I also have a blog on my site. So if you go to greatnola.com and you go to the blog, I have lots of information there, whether it's just general tips on healthy, health and wellness, but also I share a lot about my journey as a founder through some founder blog posts that I do.
Okay, very cool. We'll definitely add links to that in the show notes. Awesome. Well, I think this is super helpful. So thank you very much for coming on today. And hopefully some people will check that out and try some granola.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.